This is the Politics Hub with Sophie Ridge. Tonight, 8 soldiers die after clashes with Hezbollah inside Lebanon.
And I'm Mark Austin, live in Beirut. Tonight, Israel's military chief promises it will respond to last night's missile attacks as infantry and tank units operate in southern Lebanon. We'll also be live in the US, where Iran's ambassador said the attacks were proportionate and accused the UN of doing nothing to stop Israeli aggression.
The Prime Minister is in Brussels, where he's been meeting with the President of the European Commission and condemned Iran's attack as abhorrent. Plus, Keir Starmer is also tonight trying to draw a line under the row about freebies from wealthy donors, repaying more than £6,000 worth of gifts and promising to tighten the rules. Also, who came out top in the Battle of the Speeches in Birmingham? The 4 candidates vying to become leader of the Conservative Party have had their moment in the spotlight as the conference wraps up. We'll also ask who won the merch wars. I've been out inspecting each of their offerings to the party faithful. All that and more with Dawn Butler and Nick Ferrari, who will be with us for the next hour. It's Wednesday, we're live from Westminster and Beirut, and this is the Politics Hub. And welcome to the Politics Hub. Well, tonight, all eyes are on the Middle East after last night's direct confrontation between Israel and Iran with missiles raining down. We're now waiting to see how Israel responds. So I want to take you straight to Mark Austin, who's in Beirut on a day when the Middle East really does feel on the brink. Mark.
Yeah, good evening from Beirut. The waiting game is continuing as the Middle East, as you say, remains on the verge of an all-out war. Israel is promising a significant retaliation within days after Iran's missile attack last night. Here in Lebanon, Israeli forces have continued carrying out what they say are limited ground incursions. Israel's military has confirmed 7 soldiers have been killed in combat in the south of the country, bringing the total to 8. Meanwhile, at the United Nations, there were familiar words of condemnation against Iran from Israel and its most powerful ally.
Israel will defend itself. We will act. And let me assure you, the consequences Iran will face for their actions will be far greater than they could ever have imagined. Let me ask the Council and the entire world, how would any of you react if faced with such an attack? What would any nation do if hundreds of ballistic missiles were raining down on your civilians, your cities, your places of worship? The scale of this attack is unimaginable, and yet Iran is determined to escalate further. This is not just a threat to Israel, this is a threat to the entire world.
In a broad sense, Iran was complicit in the October 7th attacks on Israel through its funding, training, capabilities, and support for the military wing of Hamas. And after Hamas's horrific attack carried out nearly a year ago today, the United States sent a clear message to Iran. Don't exploit the situation in ways that would risk propelling the region into a broader war. The IRGC flagrantly and repeatedly ignored this warning.
Well, Iran's UN ambassador Amir Saeed Iravani countered that his country's missile attack was necessary and proportionate. He also accused Israel of pushing the Middle East to the brink of war and reiterated warnings of more attacks if Israel retaliates against Iran.
The invocation of the right of self-defense followed by an extended period of restraint reflects Iran's responsible approach to regional and international peace and security at a time when the illegal action and genocide carried out by this occupying apartheid regime against the Palestinian people, as well as its repeated military aggression against Lebanon and Syria, continue.
Let's go live to the US and our correspondent, Mark Stone. And Mark, it really does seem as if the diplomacy is being drowned out by the saber rattling and worse.
Yeah, for sure it does. I mean, in a way, we have been here before. Remember back in April when Iran attacked Israel with drones and slower missiles that were all shot down. That felt more measured, relatively speaking. They gave a lot of warning, allowing Israel to shoot them down. This was of a different level, and of course, between April and now, everything else has changed as well, with so much ratcheting up of the tension, of the rhetoric from both sides. And so we are in a different place. There's no question about that. Israel has made quite clear, indeed it made quite clear before the Iranian attacks of yesterday, that it would retaliate if Iran attacked. And they have repeated that today and said that it will come at any time. It is Rosh Hashanah now in Israel, the Jewish New Year. And so I wonder whether that will be a period where Israel will choose not to attack. That comes to an end at sundown Israeli time on Friday. So this weekend perhaps could be a key moment indeed. Now, what will Israel choose to do? What will it consider to be proportionate? What will it consider to be appropriate? And will the Israelis listen to the Americans? Joe Biden, through the course of the past year, since the October the 7th attacks, has tried to exert American influence. But the problem that he has is that at the end of the day, America will always defend Israel against whatever comes from foes within the region. And Israel knows that. Israel knows that and has demonstrated that it can push the barrier, that it can do stuff that America might not want it to do, because ultimately that guarantee is there that America will defend its closest ally. And so I think the current Israeli government is testing the water again and again and again, pushing the boundaries, seeing what they can do. And remember too that after such an extraordinary military success over the past few weeks, with assassinations, with the pager attacks and all the rest of it, Benjamin Netanyahu may well feel like he is on a roll and can now do things that he might not have felt comfortable doing before. He might feel compelled and justified to do those things. Now, President Biden is on his way, or has just arrived in South Carolina to deal with the floods here, a domestic issue, a massive one. But he was asked on the tarmac whether or not he would agree with an Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear sites. Have a listen.
Would you support an attack on Iran's nuclear sites by Israel?
The answer is no. And I think there's things we'll be discussing with the Israelis what they're going to do, but all 7 of us agree that they have a right to respond, but they should respond in proportion.
So I think a significant news line there from President Biden, making quite clear that he does not think that Israel should attack Iran's nuclear sites. It seems clear to me, though, that, as I said, America has demonstrated its limited leverage over the Israelis over the course of the past year. Remember too, Mark, that for many, many years now, Israel has felt that it alone is left to deal with the threat that it sees in Iran, that the West imposes sanctions, and President Biden said today that more sanctions will be imposed on Iran. But more than that, Israel believes that it's the one that has to do the so-called dirty work, actually hit Iran where it hurts, to reduce Iran's nuclear ability and to reduce Iran's malign influence, as they would see it, right across the Middle East. And so maybe now Prime Minister Netanyahu can feel emboldened to ignore President Biden, to go ahead anyway and strike nuclear sites. The consequence of that, well, Iran has said, and Iranian sources in New York have said to me again today, that they would strike back much, much harder against Israel. You can see how all this unravels very quickly. It's worth reflecting too, it's not just regional impact, but global impact, because the oil prices would soar with a regional war. Domestically here in the United States, with a US election just a month away, that is going to have an impact on voters here. It's going to have impact on back pockets right around the world. This is a major, major problem economically. It is a truly huge problem for humanity in the region.
Yeah, absolutely. OK, Mark, thank you very much indeed. Well, back here in Lebanon, Israeli forces have been carrying out what they are calling limited ground incursions in the south of Lebanon. Our international correspondent, John Sparks, was taken by Hezbollah security to an area the group controls here in Beirut. There he was shown the site of an Israeli missile strike.
We are on the front line in this conflict in Dahia, the Hezbollah-controlled area in South Beirut, and we have been brought by the Hezbollah security team to this site. It's a building, an office block that was brought down 2 days ago. You may be able to see the rubble is still smoking. It housed a television station, a religious television station. It's now been decorated with portraits of Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, who was assassinated by the Israelis. They have brought along a very considerable contingent of journalists, 150 people here, and I think inevitably this offers members of Hezbollah some protection. The Israelis are unlikely to hit this area while journalists are here. That's our assumption. We don't have much time here. I can tell you that the Israelis have been hitting this area. Been a series of airstrikes overnight, 12 reported in Beirut. So it is an active combat area. The Israelis giving warnings. In some cases, they say that Hezbollah is manufacturing weapons underneath residential buildings. But that's not the message that Hezbollah are trying to get across here. They say the Israelis are hitting residential areas. This was a densely populated part of the city. More than 1 million people lived in this district. That's what they're trying to get across. And as you can see, the damage here is significant. It is considerable.
So, Sophie, we are at a really dangerous moment in this region and in this crisis. Up more to come through the evening, but for now, back to you.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. Mark Austin there, bringing us right up to speed on that story from Beirut. Well, let's just reflect a little bit now on some of the UK political reaction, because speaking in Brussels, Keir Starmer reiterated his view that Israel has the right to defend itself and adding that no one wants a regional war.
First, we took part in a call with fellow G7 members where we all condemned Iran's abhorrent attack on Israel last night. We agreed on the importance of Israel's security and right to defend itself in the face of this unacceptable aggression. And we call on all sides to show restraint and avoid escalating further. No one wants a regional war. We also agreed on the urgency of ceasefires in Lebanon and Gaza to allow the space for political solutions.
Well, the Defence Secretary has also been in Cyprus, where he's been explaining exactly what the UK's involvement was last night when Iran attacked.
They were in the skies, they were part of the wider effort to prevent further escalation and to show the UK's steadfast support for Israel's right to self-defence and to security. They did not engage, but they were ready to do so, and nevertheless they were playing a part in the wider efforts to deter further conflict, and they will continue to do so.
Well, joining us now is the former UK ambassador to the United States, Lord Darroch, who earlier served as a UK National Security Advisor as well. And thank you so much for being on the programme this evening. I mean, it feels like this is a moment that everyone feared, and now it really is trying to work out how Israel is going to respond. They've said that Iran will pay for the strikes. A ceasefire feels like a long way away. What's your assessment on where this is going?
I don't think there's anything very original about it, Sophie. I think it's an exceptionally dangerous moment. I think an awful lot depends on what Israel does next and the nature of it. So I'm sure there will be an Israeli response to the Iranian missile attack. It's the nature of that response that counts for a lot. At one level, maybe the Iranians would say, well, OK, we don't need to go back on that. But another level, they might feel the need to respond themselves. And then you get into, we're already pretty much there. This is precisely the regional escalation that we've feared ever since the 7th of October Hamas attack on the Israeli settlements on the West Bank. And, you know, we're on the brink now. We really are. And an awful lot rests on what happens in the next few days. Yeah,
it really does feel at that critical point, the moment that everyone's been worried about. Can I ask you about Iran? Because it feels like I'm very clear on the strength of Israel militarily. How strong is Iran? How worried should we be about them?
They're not, in military terms, able really to take on Israel. They have an awful lot of equipment. They have probably thousands of missiles and drones and things, but it's all mostly quite old, probably poorly maintained. It's not state-of-the-art stuff at all. So the sort of thing they did yesterday with that missile attack, they're capable of doing that. But I think the Iranian armed forces, on the whole, in part because of sanctions, in part because the country really is close to bankruptcy, it has been for years, they're in pretty poor shape. But they have the Houthis, they have Hezbollah, they have the Shiite tribes in Iraq, and they have Hamas. So they have a lot of proxies around the region. There may be more, which I haven't mentioned, that can make trouble. So their capability to actually make things difficult, to damage the Western economic interests, to interfere with shipping, whether in the Red Sea or even in the Gulf, which they've done in the past, is real and can be really damaging economically to us. So not to diminish that, but in terms of pure military strength, they're not big players.
It's really interesting to hear that explanation. Let's talk a bit about the diplomatic response, the international response. Firstly, with the UK, Keir Starmer, of course, been very clear on Israel's right to defend itself. Do you think that Keir Starmer has got the UK government's position right?
I do think he has, actually, because Hezbollah have been firing missiles at Israel on and off for many years now. But recently that has accelerated ever since the Israeli operation in Gaza. And they've had to evacuate, I think, tens of thousands of Israelis from northern Israel. And you can't expect Israel to do nothing in response to that. And so they've done what they've done. They do have the right of self-defense legally, but they have to act within humanitarian law and with in a proportionate way. And that's the question that will arise now. If this ground operation is limited, then they'll be able to claim that it has been proportionate. But if it goes in the way that the operation in Gaza has gone, which has gone on now for sort of 10 months, and reportedly has killed 40,000 Palestinians, then you will start to get questions about whether they're really acting within international law.
I'm interested on your assessment of the US, because this is the biggest influence, if you like, on Israel and in the region as well. We've obviously heard from Joe Biden, there's the US election approaching. What's your reflections on what the US can do right now, if anything?
Yeah, this is really difficult, Sophie. I mean, I think Biden has gone really quite a long way. I mean, I think he's of that generation who are really strong gut supporters of Israel. He's gone really quite a long way to be critical of them and to put pressure on them. You remember back in May, he announced that they weren't going to send certain types of weapons, of heavy bombs to Israel because they thought they might be used in the operation in Gaza. But ultimately, it would be very difficult for any American president, any American administration at any time to get so tough with Israel that they were to stop US support for Israel and stop all the military supplies that go constantly from America to Israel. And that's doubly so when you are 30 odd days off a US election. So there is a real limit to US leverage here. And you can see from Netanyahu's behavior that he basically doesn't think that they're ever going to do anything that really hurts Israel, that he doesn't have a totally free hand because there will always be public criticism that Biden and the administration can be very critical of, and public opinion in America counts in Israel. But there's no evidence that there is any real significant restraint on Netanyahu from America at the moment, I'm afraid.
Lord Darrett, thank you very much indeed. Always so good to get your experience and your thoughts. Thank you. Well, of course, we'll be keeping you up to date on the escalating situation in the Middle East with Mark Austin and the rest of the team who are out in the region as well. But now to politics back here and the ongoing row about gifts from wealthy donors, which of course has caused a bit of a headache for the government, because tonight it looks like Keir Starmer is trying to draw a line under the matter. He's announcing he's paying back more than £6,000 worth of gifts that he's received since becoming Prime Minister. So that's the total there, £6,000 that he's paid back in gifts and hospitality since entering number 10, not as leader of the opposition, I should say. Now, what does this include? Well, the famous photo there of Keir Starmer and his wife. It includes 6 tickets worth £2,800 to go and see one Taylor Swift. 4 tickets worth £1,000 and £939 to the Doncaster races. And also 2 tickets from the Football Association as well. That's worth £598. He's also paid back a £839 clothing rental agreement with a famous designer who Lady Starmer wore to London Fashion Week, and also the Labour Party conference as well. 1 hour of hair and makeup was also covered in that. Right, let's talk, shall we, to our political correspondent, Serena Barker-Singh, who joins us now. Serena, I guess this is just to try and move on, be whiter than white, nothing to see here.
I think so, but it's quite a sticky issue for the government, and they've tried to quash it before, but it seems to be a story of whack-a-mole. They deal with one issue, then another donation pops up. So they've come out today, said they're going to look at the rules, and they're going to overhaul the hospitality rules for ministers to ensure better transparency, and as part of that, update the ministerial code. I guess, remember, these are rules he's profited from, right? So with that, he's decided to pay some of that back, as you mentioned, the Taylor Swift tickets, stuff he's accepted from Football Association, Doncaster Racing, these clothing rental agreement for his wife. So in that, there's an admission that some of these were wrong, that some of the ones that he paid for perhaps stepped over the line, that perhaps under the new ministerial code wouldn't quite hit the mark. He hasn't quite said that, but he was asked this today, and this is what he said.
On the repayment, I can't say any more than I did. We're going to drop some principles until they're in, which will guide everybody. Until they're in place, I thought it was right to repay these particular payments. That's the long and the short of it.
Keir Starmer there. Yeah, I know what you mean. He's been kind of defending this, saying this was absolutely fine. So the question is then, I guess, why has he paid it back? Lord Ali as well, someone who I bet most of us would never have heard of until a few months ago. But of course, he is the man at the centre of this round. There's been a bit of a development today.
Yes, unfortunate timing in that sense, because, as you say, he is the biggest personal donor to Keir Starmer and has been at the centre of this. Now, Keir Starmer's always said he's followed by the rules, he's been as transparent as possible. Lord Ali now is being investigated by the Parliamentary Commissioner for an alleged non-registration of interest. Now, Labour seem to be convinced that this is very clerical and dull with the words they use, that they're quietly confident this investigation will blow over. It could be something as trivial as not registering something on time or not giving enough details. We really don't know, and an investigation is ongoing. But I think political opponents are spotting a bruise, perhaps, that they can keep hitting Labour with. They clearly see it as a weakness. And now this investigation is ongoing. I mean, it has to come back at some point. So this game of whack-a-mole could go on.
Thanks very much indeed, Serena Barker-Singh, speaking to us there. Well, the stories that we covered so far tonight, events in the Middle East and, of course, the Prime Minister's announcement on gifts are sure to feature in tomorrow's newspapers. We'll have our extended press preview from 10:30 this evening with tonight's news and tomorrow's headlines. Joining us will be the Daily Mirror's associate editor, Kevin Maguire, and the former Conservative Special Advisor, Anita Berting. Right, let's bring in our duo for the evening, shall we? The Labour MP, Dawn Butler, and the broadcaster, Nick Flowery. Great to have you both with us tonight. Dawn, how bothered are you by the kind of freebie donations and stuff?
Well, I think there's a very well-established saying in politics that if a story runs for 3 days, it's time to do something drastic, like, a U-turn or approach it in a different manner. This story is run for longer than 3 days. I'm not quite sure that giving back £6,000 is going to draw a line under it. This one's been laughing non-stop at that. So I think it's then going to raise more questions of people saying, well, why are you only paying, this amount back? And I suppose the response to that is, well, since he's become Prime Minister, he's paid back a number of freebies. But I'm sure Nick has something to say about this.
Well, this is brilliant.
Here we go.
Right? So it took the Conservatives more than a decade to get into this mire, and it's taken your mob about half an hour. He wants to see Tay-Tay, but he won't pay. He wants to see the footy, but he won't play ball. He told me exactly a week ago he had done nothing wrong, right? I've done nothing wrong. If you've done nothing wrong, why are you paying the money back? Why are you introducing new rules and regulations that will limit how much you can take? This is extraordinarily embarrassing, and it's even worse from a government that, bear in mind, is nicking 300 quid off all but the poorest pensioners as they all go after the footy and Taylor Swift.
But
It is a shocking look.
But there is a big difference, right? And none of the gifts that he's received has influenced anything that he's done. Like Taylor Swift concert tickets hasn't influenced what he's talking about in regards to access. No, but I'm just saying, as compared to the previous government who were giving millions of pounds to people through the PPE lane, VIP lane,
But you promised a
and
cleaner world.
and was influenced by that.
But you promised us a cleaner politics, and actually you're as deep in the Mulligatawny as the other mob, aren't you?
Well, it's not as dirty as the Conservative government. It just doesn't
Well, why is
look
it paying
good.
the money
But
back,
it just
Dawn?
doesn't look good, does it?
I really like you, and I actually bizarrely wish it wasn't you, because I really do like you. But why are they paying the cash back then? Because they know it's wrong.
Right. As I said, no, but it's a perception. So what Keir... I mean, I haven't spoken to Keir, so I don't know.
If you bought him a suit, you'd probably talk to him.
Well, you know, no one's bought me an outfit, and I know Wahid Ali. He's never bought me a dress.
You haven't asked.
And I thought
you need to go on the phone.
I know. I thought we were friends. But he obviously
Birthday parties, have you closed?
He obviously
What's going on?
doesn't like me that much.
You do admit it's a bad look. And to your point, they seem unable to draw a line. Why are they still paying the money?
Nick, what would you say to those in Labour who might be feeling a bit hard done by? They say, look, this is the kind of thing that's gone on in Westminster for years and years and years, and that they've just been declaring it more than the last guys.
I think it's all a matter of, I think they call it optics. They have come in, and if they hadn't been on, quite understandably, the moral high ground, because let me say, the previous mob, they had the morals of an alley cat. They were appalling, and I'm not pretending otherwise. But these guys and women quite understandably said, we are not going to live like that. And the electorate thought, well, thank the Lord, let's get a bunch of people in who are going to be cleaner and clearer. And sadly, at the moment, it might be different. At the moment, they look as bad as the other mob, don't they?
But again, it's down to perception, right? It's down to perception in
been
terms of
3
why
months.
have you got someone buying your clothes? Why are you having a birthday party paid for? So it's down to perception. But it's different in regard politically. It is very different. There's no corruption that's gone on there. Lord Wahid Ali, he's already a lord.
I know he is.
So it's not as though he's
Why is he
saying,
doing
right,
it
it's not
then?
saying that I'm.
Because he likes the colour of his eyes. Why is he buying Keir Starmer suits?
He's doing it because he's got a wad of money and he wants to, and he wanted to make sure that Labour politicians
The viewers
look
of Sky
good.
News now,
And
this
he
is
helps.
so weird. They or their grandmothers or their grandfathers are not being able to turn up the thermostat, and this bloke is going to Taylor Swift and getting free
Okay,
suits.
so there's two
It's
different.
ludicrous.
You're pivoting to two different things.
Well, I might
but we
be.
can agree. but we can agree. We can agree politically that there's no corruption there, right?
There's no apparent corruption. I agree with that.
Right.
I agree with that.
So,
Absolutely.
and that's the big difference.
OK, I'm going to break it off.
Seconds away.
You can do it later in the pub. Thank you both very much indeed, Dawn and Nick. You're watching The Politics Hub. Coming up. Conservative leadership hopefuls channel political titans of the past as the final 4 try to make the final 2.
It's a clash between barbarism and civilization.
The failures of October the 7th are the failures of Benjamin Netanyahu.
He was in complete shock. Everything he believed about Hamas turned out to be wrong.
They are bent on Israel's destruction.
I think he's the greatest statesman we've had.
He's not a diplomat. He's a populist politician.
I'm Adam Parsons. I'm Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels.
More flares going off, a volley of rocks. Cobbles have been pulled up
out and are being used as missiles to hurl at these police. We take you to the heart of stories that shape our world. We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news. We have now left Italy and entered France. Nobody's asked to check our identity. Made by people who dare to challenge. Nice to see you again, Mr. Barnier. Why? Meeting you. Fishing does have the potential to stymie an enormous economic deal. What strikes you when you come to this glacier is not just the way in which the environment is changing, but the speed at which those changes are happening.
It's devastating, actually.
It's a clash between barbarism and civilization.
The failures of October the 7th are the failures of Benjamin Netanyahu.
He was in complete shock. Everything he believed about Hamas turned out to be wrong.
They are bent on Israel's destruction.
I think he's the greatest statesman we've had.
He's not a diplomat. He's a populist politician.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. Well, let's talk, shall we, about the Conservative Party conference. I've just got back from Birmingham, where the Leadership Beauty Parade was really in full swing. It's been an incredibly unpredictable race and really hard to call, but I just want to give you my takeaway on where we are after perhaps the most important week in that race. So just quickly, 4 candidates left. They all gave speeches today. MPs will then whittle it down to 2 next week, and then it's over to Conservative Party members to make their selection. So the frontrunner is Robert Jenrick. He's way ahead in the MP nominations. He's also increasingly popular with the membership. He's been closing the gap on Kemi Badenoch. Now, Jenrick is positioning himself on the right. His number one priority is immigration. He's effectively adopted Suella Braverman's campaigning team. So you wouldn't want to bet against Robert Jenrick. And yet it seems to me that he could have sealed the deal at conference, but he didn't. His speech was decent enough, but he didn't have that breakthrough moment. So it's just not in the bag for him yet. And then we have Kemi Badenoch. So she is the straight-talking Tory. She's loved by the members, but is she going to make the final 2? Now, this week was classic Kemi. She made headlines saying 10% of civil servants should be in prison and maternity pay was excessive, perhaps perfectly demonstrating why members love the fact she speaks her mind, she's authentic, she's not a robot, but boy, is she a risky candidate. And her supporters say at least she's cutting through in a party struggling for relevance. So if Kemi Badenoch is the blow-up-everything candidate, the safety candidate is James Cleverly. If I'm being honest, he is the one who should probably be happiest with how conference has gone. He made a good speech, he got the biggest applause in the hall, and if you're talking about that all-important word, momentum, well, he's the man who's got it. But he's only got 10 declared MP backers. Robert Jenrick has 22, so it is absolutely not a given that James Cleverly makes the final 2. But there is one thing that might help him get there. He is fishing in the same pool of MPs as Tom Tugendhat, seen as another centrist Conservative candidate. I think it's probably fair to say that Cleverly gave the better speech. So when MPs vote next week, if Cleverly mops up the second preferences of Tom Tugendhat and also Mel Stride, if you remember him, he was knocked out last time, well, those numbers could change pretty quickly. He's a one to watch. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, reports now a warning her piece does contain some flash photography.
Here come the final 4 in this beauty pageant for Conservative Party members. Back-to-back speeches on the big stage and the chance to make a big impression. First up, Tom Tugendhat.
My opponents claim that they've got more management experience around the cabinet table.
Sure, that's true. But I'm not here to manage. I'm here to lead.
A tough ask at this stage. Bookies have this MP as the next to drop out. Hi, Tom. You feeling good?
Yeah, I am.
Do you think you did enough to stay in there because you're the?
I think, look, the message
you're
is very
the.
clear, isn't it, Beth? There's a very clear message here. If we want to get the change that this country needs, we need a new Conservative revolution.
You're in last position, Tom.
I'm not.
You are.
I'm in third equal.
James Cleverly up next. His pitch experience.
Now is not the time for an apprentice. I'm not doing this because I want to be something. I'm doing this because I want to do something.
Are you feeling like you have momentum? Has it gone better than you expected?
We had a plan. Everything I do, I plan, and the plan was straightforward. Get to conference because this is my family.
So you've got the Riz.
You tell me. You tell me.
You
Tell me.
Ahead with MPs, Robert Jenrick here with his familiar pitch on immigration.
We must take a stand to secure our borders. We must secure our borders. There is no future for this party unless we take a stand to answer this problem.
More than an hour in, the final speaker, Kemi Badenoch, hoping to ignite this room.
Some people say, I like a fight. I can't imagine where they got that idea. But it's not true. I do not like to fight, but I'm not afraid to fight.
Our leadership candidate.
Well, that's it. The candidates have made their pitch to conference, and James Cleverly, perhaps the best pleased. He landed well in this hall. Not bad going for the person who came in as an underdog. But my main takeaway after 4 days of conference and 4 pitches is that this is a race still wide open. Closing conference in harmony, but these 4 fighting hard to stay in this race and reach the members' vote.
I did go in thinking Tom and Cleverly. But then again, I really like Badenoch. I really think at the moment I'm going for James Cleverly. But obviously it does come down to who the final 2 are.
I believe that Robert's the right man to lead us forward. Now, Kemi, to be fair, also came out with some good ideas as well.
After that election collapse, this party knows it needs a total rebuild. Whoever wins this race in November faces a mammoth task. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Birmingham.
So, 4 candidates for the Conservative leadership, 4 very different people, 4 very different visions for the party, and it does matter. It really matters who's leader of the opposition as well. So that's why we're doing our Conservative leadership interviews. We've already spoken to this guy, to Tom Tugendhat. Today, we caught up with the man of the moment, really. We spoke to James Cleverly. So just after he finished his speech to party faithful in Birmingham, we spoke to James Cleverly and, of course, then hot-footed it back down to London to present the show. But I just want you to listen to the interview that I did.
James Cleverly, thank you very much for being on the programme. We can sort of feel conference being taken down around us. You've just come from your speech. It felt to me like it was a pitch for the Conservative centre. Is that fair?
It's a pitch for the whole of the Conservative family. And that's the point I'm making. I have got backers right from day one who are regarded by some, but I don't really see it like this, as from the left of the parliamentary party, from the right of the parliamentary party, from the centre of the parliamentary party. As the leader of the party, you have to inspire the whole family, not just one segment of it. And that's what I hope to do in the auditorium today. It feels like I have G'd up the troops, which is what we need, and I'm very pleased that the conference has gone well.
One line stuck out from your speech. Let's be more normal. What are you trying to get at there?
We have to look, feel, sound, talk more like the people that we want to vote for us. So, you know, we can talk about all the Westminster bubbly type things.
Like what?
Well, you know, now you put me on the spot. I can't think of anything. Maybe I'm too normal. But the point is the infighting, the factionalism, all that kind of me, introspection, that really turned off the voters. And we need to get back into talking about the kind of issues that people feel in their daily lives.
Do you think you're the most normal of the four candidates then?
Well, that's not for me to judge. That's for others to judge. But
what do you think?
Well, in all the polling that I've seen, I get better cut through. There you go. That's a Westminster bubble term. I get better cut through with most people, and that's what we need to do. We need to not necessarily just speak their language, but hear their voices, understand better.
You're skirting around it a little bit there, but we know what you mean. You're basically saying I'm the normal guy. These guys are less normal than I am. And the other thing you said, I didn't complain about net migration or walk away from the challenge. I got it down. Who are you talking about there?
Well, look. You can get into politics to talk about stuff, and that's very tempting when you're in opposition, and just be angry. Or you can get into politics to make change, to improve lives.
You're talking about Robert Jenrick there, aren't you? That
look,
he walked away.
So I've never resigned. I've never resigned from government, and sometimes sticking put and grafting it out is the harder option rather than the easier option.
You talked a lot in your speech as well, saying that you want to be in power, you want to be PM in 4 years. So it's a serious pitch. But some of your policies feel, I guess, like pure opposition. Defence spending 3% of GDP, get rid of stamp duty, the state never taking more than half of any pound you take. I mean, come on, Paul Johnson of the IFS will be spitting out his cup of tea looking at these figures.
So I'm not here to try and impress Paul. Very, very smart guy. The point I'm making is if the leader of the Conservative Party can't stand up publicly and say that the tax burden being at the highest it has ever been, but yet we can't even discuss reducing taxes, we are goners. On the international stage, we are goners. So I want to bring taxes down. To bring taxes down, you have to reduce some spending. I want to protect the country, first duty of government, which is why the one area that's a real outlier is defence spending. But compared with the spending that we put into health, into welfare, for example, that additional, 0.7% of GDP is very modest compared with other areas of expenditure. I am going to explain to the British people how they can have more liberated lives and pay less in tax.
You've got a reputation, talking about the fact you want to be PM, and I should just say I'm aware of the chaos going around us, so thanks for battling through. You want to be PM, but there's a question mark about whether you're prime ministerial enough. You've got a reputation, frankly, for being a bit brash, joking about spiking your wife's drink with Rohypnol, allegedly calling Stockton North a something hole that I can't see on TV, which you're saying that you didn't. Referring to your Lib Dem,
I didn't.
Referring to your Lib Dem coalition colleague Simon Hughes as a four-letter word starting with a D. I mean, you might be a laugh in the pub, but is this really appropriate for someone who wants to be PM?
Sophie, I've been in frontline politics for 20 years. I have been the public face and voice of the Conservative Party on so many interviews like this, and over a 20-year career, you've picked 3 examples. I am warts and all, you know where you stand, but seriously, if your accusation is 3 examples over 20 years, I don't really think that's a valid criticism.
Taking a step back from conference, the big question everyone's talking about is momentum. Who's got the momentum? And there's a lot of people talking about your speech, saying it's you. Are you confident that you're going to get into the final 2? How confident?
Well, look, the 3 other candidates are really good candidates, but I knew that this is my space. These are people that I've campaigned alongside for decades. I've always felt comfortable in conference, and at conference you can't hide. You can't hide from the media, you can't hide from the members, you can't hide from scrutiny. If you're wearing a mask, the mask will slip. I've never been anything other than myself, so I always felt confident that that would come across. I've been picking up backers and endorsements and more commitments for votes from MPs. So I'm very happy with my performance at conference.
OK, I'm going to let you go. Thank you very much indeed.
Sophie, thanks very much.
We can chat now to Dawn and Nick. It's one of those times at conference where it's brutal. As soon as the speeches are done, they start just dismantling everything around you. So
Can I vote for Bob the Builder? I'd like to vote him for the leader.
It's a bit like an analogy for politics. Isn't it? As soon as you're out, that's
Yeah,
it.
that's it.
Clear out your office.
Yeah, no ceremony at all. Interviewing James Cleverly straight after the 4 speeches, the back-to-back speeches, I was really struck by their confidence, actually, which was interesting because obviously the last round of MPs voting, they stalled. It wasn't like he was going into conference with the momentum, but it did feel like he's had quite a good conference, I don't know.
This is the first time, I think, in 15 years I've not been to but I don't like to go to wakes. I find them quite upsetting, so it's best I don't go. All I've done, and I'll pick up from what I've just watched there, I would have thought if you were running a bookmakers now, you'd probably start putting money on Cleverly. I think he had a very good conference. I think he appealed well. Obviously, Robert Jenrick went in as the favourite. What I find truly extraordinary, and I'm sure we can bring Dawn in on this, is that currently, unless you know differently, the plan is we will finally have the leader unveiled to an expectant nation around the same time as the US election, which to me seems bloody nuts. We've got the Labour, huge budget coming up, and I know there is a move to have someone in place. I don't quite see, it's not unless you're talking about a lot of people. What's the Conservative membership now, 150,000? I don't know. Surely they could move a little bit. Would it not have been better to have this the final, and then everybody votes, and then next week, boom, the new leader of the party is insert name here. I find it incredible they're taking this long, and I don't know what it achieves.
Yeah,
Just say I agree with Nick.
Well, I kind of do agree with you, actually.
No, just I agree with
okay,
Nick.
we don't mind a bit of agreement.
Yeah, I actually
That's
do
allowed.
agree with you, because I don't know why it's taking so long. I actually find it quite painful. But I feel that probably James Cleverly wasn't the front runner going into conference,
Yep.
but coming out of conference, he is. But he is the most personable. You know, when you're walking around Parliament, he is the most personable to say hello to, even when we argue, have an argument with him. So I can see why that would be the case.
It's hard to call. I honestly, I feel like it's really, genuinely very different to call.
Yeah.
Dawn, I'm going to ask, what's your sense on this? Are you basically hoping that they choose the worst possible option so that Labour can be in power for another 5 years? Or are you actually worried about, the strength of the opposition and think actually it's good for democracy to have a functioning Conservative party?
I think it's vital for democracy to have a really strong opposition. I think that's absolutely vital. Whether any of them will give us that, I don't know. I think Robert Jenrick, I didn't realise how terrible a lot of his views were until this process, which I found quite interesting, like talking about the HRC and referring to an immigration, very, very strange campaign, I think. Kemi Badenoch, Larry the Cat said, if she wins, we all need to declare it as a gift to the Labour Party, which I must say, I quite agree with Larry the Cat. So it's going to be an interesting one, I think. But I do feel in regards to stability, it probably would make sense to have a leader in place for the budget so they can start putting out their stall.
What are they achieving by the delay? I don't get it. They've all done their pitch, as you rightly say. They've all set out their stall, whatever it might be. Why is there not the dynamic to get it done?
It's down to the MPs now to whip it down to 2.
But then, absolutely, and then get it out and get it done. Yeah. I don't see what's achieved.
It does feel
really weird,
a bit odd not having.
And it gets lost in the first week
before the budget as well, like you say.
Pardon me. It all gets lost in the first week of November because all eyes on Washington, obviously, where we go over there.
Yeah, it's true. Thanks both very much indeed, Dawn and Nick. We'll be talking a bit more about conference at the end of the programme, but I do want to take you to Brussels because earlier we heard from Keir Starmer. Now, the reason he was in Brussels was to meet the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, where they talked about trying to reset relations. So, is this the dawn of a new era of closer cooperation? We can talk now to our Europe correspondent, Adam Parsons, who is there. Adam, what was going on?
Yeah, she was here to meet Ursula, I should say Keir Starmer was here to meet Ursula von der Leyen, and also Charles Michel, President of the European Council, and Roberta Metsola, President of the European Parliament. And you can gauge which was the most important by the briefings, the press releases that have been put out about those 3 meetings. 413 words about von der Leyen, 73 about Charles Michel, 97 about Roberta Metsola. So let's cut to the quick here. It's really Ursula von der Leyen there. You can see the meeting earlier. That was the big meeting. And that is where so much of the diplomatic activity in this city
has been funnelled over the past few days. Now, I think Keir Starmer and Ursula von der Leyen come from slightly different perspectives. I should say von der Leyen is a bit of an Anglophile. She, went to London School of Economics, but she is also the person who met this dizzying succession of prime ministers and Brexit secretaries. And I think she was also the fulcrum of a lot of discontent here about the negotiations around Brexit. She is also the person who thinks, frankly, that Britain still hasn't enacted the withdrawal agreement properly. And there's plenty in this city who think until Britain does that, then how can you negotiate any kind of concessions? Steaming into town to meet her, Keir Starmer, and 11 vehicles that turned up behind him at the ambassador's residence this morning, full of advisers. Now, he wants concessions. He wants, in other places, new agreements over things like defence and security. I think he would like to have a big attention-grabbing deal about cross-channel migration. But one thing he seems reluctant to do, I asked him earlier about youth mobility. There are lots here in Brussels and across Europe who think that there is a win-win on the table to allow European youngsters, students to come into Britain and vice versa. At the moment, that seems to be a no-no, I think partly because there are plenty in the Home Office who think that that will boost the migration figures, which is exactly what they don't want. Now, listening to both von der Leyen and particularly Keir Starmer, what came across was an absolute concrete desire not to be seen to be promising anything. Frankly, those 413 words in the statement were really pretty vague. It was all about good intentions. But is there anything concrete that's come out of this? No, not really.
Adam, I did enjoy that brutal assessment. Thank you very much indeed. Adam Parsons for us there in Brussels. Right, to end the show, I just want to take you briefly back to conference, because it's not just policy, it's not just promises of taking the party out of the shadows of opposition on offer from the Conservative leadership contenders. Nestled among the businesses exhibiting at conference, the hopefuls seeking to take over from Rishi Sunak have been competing offstage with something of a battle for the most eye-catching merchandise. So before we left Birmingham, we just had to take a quick look around to find out what was on offer from the candidates trying to find the winning edge.
What's been the most popular item on the stall, do you reckon? What's really selling like hotcakes?
Tote bags.
The tote bags.
Tote bags went straight away.
Caffeine with Cleverly mug. Very nice, pretty good.
And these are going to be a real hit.
These are the hot ticket. The lanyards.
Lanyards. Lanyards.
We're on the hunt for the best merch.
Unfortunately, ours is now mostly being
sold.
Yes.
What's these sold out?
We have sold out today, or we sold out of Tugun Tan, that all went yesterday at Fake Tan.
That went down well at conference then?
That all went yesterday, yes.
Oh, we're too late. We're too late.
I mean, so there's lanyards, so people can make clear that they're Kemi supporters, Kemi apples,
Look at these.
One a day.
We've got a Kemi apple. So they're healthy.
They're healthy.
So we have got badges. I believe we're the only campaign with square badges as well as circular badges. So we can take the square in the round and we can win. So that's what we're about.
So the excitement levels about the square badges and the Kemi apples. It's just another... I just feel like it's important for everyone to realise just how bonkers conferences are. Labour conference as well, to be fair.
Yeah, but square badges and round badges, I mean, why would you get excited about that? That's strange. That gives politicians a bad name.
It's like the worst boot sale on earth, really, isn't it? It's the most extra... And you're right, unless you go to these things and you are in such an extraordinary bubble, you find yourself buying a giant felt fist with a finger pointing up and you walk around saying, Tom. I mean, if you did it in any other walk of life, you'd probably get arrested. But over there, yes, come on, it's a bizarre world. I don't envy you, Sophie. Well done.
Thank you very much.
The water flasks would have been useful.
Yeah, the water... There's a power bank as well. That's quite useful.
Power bank, always need a power bank.
Yeah, and the lanyards, I guess, as well.
Yeah, somehow I'd get through somehow.
The weird...
Was there a Kemi birthing smock or maternity outfit or something like that? That would have been quite good. We need something like that.
There was the weird thing after having done the Lib Dems, Conservatives and Labour, was that Labour last year. Labour was buzzing, they were pumped, they were in party mode. This year, Labour was very serious, almost kind of sombre, whereas actually it was the Conservatives who felt I mean, I thought, like you said, I thought it would be like a wake, but it wasn't at all. They were actually quite cheery. I mean, why do you think Labour's so serious?
Well, it was very corporate this time. And I suppose we're in government, so it was all about, you know, being serious government. So that, and there's lots of new people as well, so it's all very new to them. So probably don't realise you can smile and have a laugh and, like, you know, come to my Jamaica party. And I was going to say the Conservative Commons, obviously they've got a leadership election, so that's going to get, you know, at least 4 different groups of people buzzing and excited.
Do you remember your first day in big school as a school? That was what the Labour conference... It was like the kids was their first day in big school. They don't quite know when break is. They don't know what the toilets are. They are in big school and they're a little bit in awe. That's what Liverpool felt like to me.
Apart from your party, which by all accounts was, you know, that was a celebration, right?
We had 1,000 people through the door in the first hour, and we had Levi Roots as a special guest this year. So it's always like, you know, a banging party conference.
Now you tell us.
Look, you're very welcome next year.
Me and you are going to be there next year.
Definitely.
Only if I'm on the karaoke.
There's a... Well,
do I have
to
declare my ticket?
In all seriousness, though, because, I mean, conferences are bizarre, and I've been going to conference now for about a decade, which is kind of crazy. How important are conferences, do you think, for the members as well, Dawn?
Conferences for the Labour Party, and this is what I also think there's a lot of people within the Labour Party need to remember. Conference is vital for the membership. We are a member-led organisation. And so the views of our members, the direction of travel that they'd like the party to take, we need to take our membership seriously because they are the backbone and central to us as an organisation. And I think sometimes some politicians forget that. And
the danger is when you're in government,
remember.
do you not think you talk to yourself? And it doesn't actually matter whatever you say in Liverpool is great. It's how it's resonating in Leicester and Leominster and everywhere else. That's the key, isn't it? Because you come out of Liverpool and you're feeling great. It's how you come out of Birmingham and you're feeling great. It's how the message is seen around the rest of the country. That's the reality, isn't it?
But we have structures within the Labour Party to ensure that the membership views are fed through to the leadership, and what we have to ensure that the leadership listens.
Do you enjoy conference?
Yes, because it's the most extraordinary. It's like it's like being on drugs without having to pay and get nicked. But not that I've ever been. It's like the most extraordinary life experience. So I'm told. It's extraordinary. But I wouldn't recommend it to those who are elderly or infirm.
Thanks both very much indeed.
And don't try it at home.
I have to say, it's been a real roller coaster day. We've been in Birmingham, come back. I was very relieved to have you both on
You
the
might
panel.
still be in Birmingham. Who do you know?
No idea. That's it from us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at 7. Up next, though, it's the UK Tonight with Sarah Jane Moon.